Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of General Geekery. We had a fantastic episode for you last week, but unfortunately, due to, we'll call it technical error, we didn't record a fourth of the show. So, God damn it.
And the part we did record is outdated now because there was PulseCon news that is ancient now. So
Yeah, pretty much. Because actually, it was 2 weeks ago now, I think, that we recorded that show. So, the PulseCon announcement was the classified Hawk and Tripwire.
And most of that segment of the show was me bitching for 10 minutes about how much Tripwire sucks. I don't need to go down that road again.
Yeah, that's pretty much the long and the short of that. And how I was going to do a listen and fun Tripwire custom for JD when that figure gets released.
I'll be happy to have that custom as long as it means I never buy Tripwire myself. I'm good. I won't even buy it for custom fodder. I refuse. So the only time I ever owned Tripwire, I had a Tiger Force one when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I had the 2001 version that was released in the 2-pack with Big Brawler.
All right.
But I have no use for either version. I no longer have the 2001 version, but I had no use for it back when it came out. I opened it, used Big Brawler, and probably customized Tripwire because he sucks. So
I had him. He was I think he was my second G.I. Joe figure ever.
I can't believe you went back after that shitty figure.
I think it was Tripwire was my second, and then Snow Job was my third, because it was like my third figure before I had somebody that had a gun.
Well, that's right. Your first Joe was Torpedo, right? And it only came with the spear gun, right?
Yep.
So it took until you got Snow Job before there was any artillery involved.
Yeah. No, it was kind of a weird time because I had those two figures for a long time, it seemed like, and I didn't have any weapons for them. And I knew people that had gotten in on the like the first wave of GI Joe, so they had all of the OG-13 stuff and tons of gear, and I had a spear gun and a minesweeper for my first few guys for quite a while. I think the other thing that we talked about was the Pulse Con or Hasbro Pulse exclusive modular Iron Man figure, which comes with that massive pulse rifle. And I think a lot of people don't get what that's a reference to. And that's from I don't remember who made that video game. It's from a video game in any way.
Capcom.
That's it. Thank you. Capcom video game. Capcom video. So the Iron Man in the Capcom video game, his power up was this massive pulse rifle, and he was wearing the modular armor because that was the armor in the comics at the time. So it's kind of an homage to that, which I really dig. Honestly, I think it's a pretty cool idea.
Modular armor Iron Man. That's the one that I was familiar with when I was a teenager because I didn't read Avengers comics growing up much. When I was a teenager, it was all the mutant books for me. If there were mutants in it, I was reading it. I bought crossovers with mutants in it of series I didn't read. So. I mean, I did read some of the Spider-Man comics. Look, I used to buy Amazing Spider-Man, the title, because of Mark Bagley's art. I didn't even care about Spider-Man. I really liked that art. But I didn't really read much Avengers. But I was a War Machine fan early on because he had a crossover with, or he did a guest appearance in a couple issues of X-Force.
Yes.
So
I have those somewhere.
There was
one
of the surefire ways to get me hooked on a character was to put it in X-Force. So Yeah, I was a fan immediately. So I knew who Rhodey was before I even knew who Tony Stark was.
Is that back when Rob Liefeld was still doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After it had made, because I had read the end of New Mutants because that's when Cable came in,
Yes.
and then it made the transition over to X Force, and I think War Machine was in. He appeared in kind of early in the run. There was a Spider-Man crossover. There were some Shield agents. War Machine appeared at one point, um, at a couple points, and then I distinctly remember, yeah, he was in issue 21. Um, when Rob Liefeld wasn't on the book anymore. I believe Greg Capullo was drawing it, because um, Rob Liefeld had moved over to Image with the rest of the guys that started it. But so I was a Rhodey fan before I knew really who Stark was. But as I went back, or as other things came out, oh no, I take that back. I remember there was a book, there was a spinoff of the Avengers called Force Works. It was around for about 20 issues, but it was mostly West Coast Avengers in their own, on a new team. But Iron Man and War Machine were both in the roster, and I bought it because, oh look, it's James Rhodes as War Machine. But the uniforms that the Avengers had been wearing at that point were past the leather jacket phase where everybody had the brown leather jackets. They had, most of them had gotten redesigns, and Tony Stark had put the modular Iron Man armor on. So that was early on my favorite design for Iron Man armor. And the Marvel Legends one that came out earlier this year, I have it. I'm like, that's it. That's his coolest armor in my opinion. But this Pulse exclusive is a brighter colored repaint of it, right? From that video game.
Uh, so the Pulse exclusive, are you talking about the
Yeah.
Pulse exclusive War Machine now?
No, I'm talking about the one, the Iron Man with the big cannon. It's just,
Yeah.
it's bright red and bright yellow, right?
No, that's, yeah, it's the colors it's supposed to be. It's just, yeah, it's pretty much straight homage to the video game.
And it comes with that sweet mullet Tony Stark head.
Yeah,
And
can't get any more 90s than that mullet head.
no, in fact, very few mullet head sculpts have ever captured it as well as that one did.
Yeah.
And of course, at that time, he had the mustache too. So,
Yep.
so he was, it was all, really all that head needs is a trucker cap and completes the real look. So,
yeah, no, that comic, I mean, geez, back in the 90s, yeah, that was a look. That's for sure. And then so yeah, and then the other figure we didn't mention on the show because they just announced it a couple of days ago was a they're doing a modular armor War Machine, which is kind of ironic because JD and I were sitting and chatting over text like the day before they announced it about just that very figure, because one of the Grail figures, I have the figure loose, but one of the Grail figures carded is a modular War Machine, which is a repaint, and it comes with Mandarin, and it's a repaint, and it's in a 2-pack, and it's called Face Off, and it's a repaint of the original modular armor that came in the first 2-pack with a different colored Mandarin and the Iron Man. And it's not an easy figure to get. It's not particularly a difficult figure to get. It's a hard figure to get with the faceplate that comes off. And it's even particularly harder figure to get with the 2 weapons that mount onto his gauntlets. And it's even harder or more expensive, I will say. It's not harder, it's more expensive to get it carded with the Mandarin figure. And because JD was telling me how much he liked that that Iron Man modular armor that Hasbro Pulse had announced. And I'm like, well, if you being a War Machine fan, this is the figure for you. And it's that modular War Machine that's fairly hard to find, and I
Well,
sent him a
yeah,
picture of mine.
because your text said, "Hey, there's a modular armor war machine," to which I responded with a GIF that was basically doing this, as in, "Tell me more."
Yes.
And he took a picture of the modular armor war machine from Toy Biz, which is what this 2-pack was. I mean, at the time, Toy Biz was making them, and as cool as it was, I had to point out that it's a really buff sculpt, and it's like to the point where the veins are armored too.
Almost.
So
Yeah, it's not quite that bad, but it's pretty
it's
close.
it's a little exaggerated, but honestly, I looked at it on eBay and I'm like, I don't know. I have 2 Toy Biz War Machine figures, one of which is Ultimate War Machine, which
Mhm.
um
Now you got that one for me while I was in
yeah,
the stand.
yeah, and then I got one I got one the year before last. I got my own basically. And then I got there's another Toy Biz one that I have. It's black and white, and I mean I could go get it. It's on my desk over there. But
Yeah, go get it.
it's
Let's see
not
it.
one yeah.
And of course, as I said that, while I got on eBay and looked, and there is actually a carded the carded face-off 2-pack with the modular war machine for $50, which is a fantastic price. Of course, it had a offer, make an offer, and I offered 40 and was declined. I mean, I lowballed it for sure, and I don't normally do that, but it's a little tight this month, and there was other stuff I wanted to get, and
Well, and sometimes you never know what the sellers are willing to take if they've sat on it for long enough.
right. And that's the thing. I mean, sometimes, I mean, I've just like, I kind of want that figure. I'm gonna just throw a low ball, and they're like, yeah, sure, here, take it. So I figured it wouldn't hurt. I mean, I already have the figure in my collection. Mine does not have the. I don't. Mine has the faceplate, but mine does not have the clip-on weapons. So mine is not complete.
You should remedy that.
I
This is
tempted if I had the money. Oh yeah. So
yeah.
that is that's not a Toy Biz. That's that's Hasbro.
This is Hasbro.
Yeah, that's a Hasbro.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I got it last year on eBay it was like $10 shipped. And like, ooh, I don't recognize it. Like I don't recognize the design. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
recognize.
Hasbro. Hasbro made
Is
that.
it?
Yes,
You know what threw me off?
have one.
Because the Toy Biz always had these ball joints at the top of the thigh.
Yeah.
And I always forget that Hasbro, when they got Marvel Legends, when they got the rights, they carried that over before they went back and they redesigned, so it's just got the swivel without the ball. So
Yeah, it's not as old as you think it is. It's not a particularly old figure.
because it's not in great shape, and it only included the shoulder, the rockets. It did not include the other gun with it. So
Let me get mine real quick. Let me see what mine's got on it.
yeah, I assumed that this was a Toy Biz release, or maybe that's what the eBay listing said. Toy Biz War Machine. Who knows? It's pretty badass. I don't know what it's from, but it's pretty badass.
Yeah, here you go. So that is the other weapon that it came with.
Oh wow.
Yeah, big spring-loaded thing.
Oh, that's cool.
I it's all very reminiscent of the Iron Man movie line. This is most of this is a repaint from the Iron Man movie line, the original 6-inch Iron Man movie line.
Okay, yeah, because they did a bunch of comic book armors in that line.
Yeah. Well, and they did one of the waves was kind of like prototype armors, stuff that wasn't in the comics or in the movies. and
concept type stuff, right?
yeah, thank you. That's the word I was looking for, was concept armors. And this mold was one of them. I'm not positive about the chest piece, but definitely the lower legs and the arms themselves, not the add-on parts, but the arms themselves, and certainly not the head or the weapons. They were in the middle torso too. That's all Iron Man movie. So the first Iron Man figures from the first Iron Man movie later in the series.
Well, this figure is super cool.
Yeah,
and it's sitting on my desk because I'm still working from home, so it's sitting on my desk. I dug it up last week when I was going through some stuff, and I was like, oh, I forgot about that. So
2006, 2005, 2006. No, that can't be right. 2008.
Oh yeah, because the first movie was 2008. So
yeah. So no, 2008. So yeah, this is definitely not a Toy Biz figure.
Yeah, I just thought it was.
And
it's entirely possible that's what the eBay
is,
listing said, and they were just inaccurate. It made no difference to me. I was buying it because it was War Machine.
And yours might not be beat up. It has really interesting kind of sloppy paint apps, and the joints on mine are super loose.
Yeah, okay, the joints are loose. I figured it was in well-loved or played with condition, but maybe it was a quality control issue.
And mine is a problem child in my display for that very reason.
So it's the lead domino when they fall over.
It's one of them, that's for sure. The ankles are extremely loose. The knees are both extremely loose.
So it's not just the one I've got. I thought mine had that problem. So
no, mine is very much a problem child in my display. He's I've got like 3 or 4 figures that knock over the rest of them, and he is on that list.
And he doesn't have, like a bunch of the Iron Man movie, a bunch of figures from the 2008 movie line. He doesn't have holes in the bottom of his feet, so I can't put him on the stand.
Mine does, because I dremeled the hole in there for stands. But I did it really, really nicely, and you can't tell that it's not a factory hole unless you look at it as his other foot.
Because I feel like he's a definition of a figure that needs a stand if you don't want him to. But
I definitely have mine on a stand. But yeah, I took all of those figures and dremeled a neat little hole in there. You cannot tell that it's not a factory hole unless you look.
Well, the conversation started because I was on Facebook and I had seen some group listing or something, and there was a blue and silver Iron Man that I liked the look of, and I sent Brian a picture, and he said you can probably get that one on eBay for cheap without the Build-A-Figure part, and it's the atmospheric armor?
Atmospheric armor, yes.
Yeah,
and there's 2 different versions of that. There's a smaller one that is blue silver with black accents, and then there's it's kind of flat paint, and it's like noticeably smaller. And then there's this one, which is primo. It has a very nice metallic paint job to it, and it's blue, silver, just blue and silver. I think there is a little bit of black in there, but not as much.
But
it's not as much compared to the other figure.
But yeah, it's got this cool metallic pearlescent blue all over it. And I don't buy a lot of Iron Man variations, nor can I tell you the difference between a lot of them unless they're obvious. But this was just a cool figure, and sure enough, I got it without the Build-A-Figure piece. I got it for cheap. So,
and that's one of the nice things if you're an Iron Man collector on a budget. A lot of these figures, I mean, I follow a couple Marvel Legends groups on Facebook, and every time they they make announcements, I always kind of skim the comments to see who wants what, because somebody's always like, why didn't you make this figure, and see who Hasbro pissed off today. And there's always a fraction of the comments are always, oh good, another Iron Man figure I don't want. And I'm like, ooh, that's an Iron Man figure I want. So a lot of times, every once in a while, I'll reach out to those guys that are like, I'm like, if you buy it for the Build-A-Figure part, I'll take the Iron Man figure off your hands, because you want I don't want the Build-A-Figure part, and I want the Iron Man because I collect Iron Man, and I've gotten some good deals that way. So if you're trying to collect Iron Man figures on the cheap, any of the ones with Build-A-Figure parts, you could probably get them on eBay for a good price.
If the Build-A-Figure was Iron Man themed, like obviously the Hulkbuster, that's a definite. But I remember
there's been two, one for sure, and one that you could kind of say was Iron Man themed. Well, no, because they did a Crimson Dynamo Build-A-Figure, and I don't have that.
Yeah, with Black Widow movie toys, right?
Yeah, I couldn't afford. I couldn't afford to buy the whole wave. So the thing that I did with the Hulkbuster wave, I bought the entire wave because I wanted that figure. I ended up selling the two figures from that wave that were not Iron Man figures to somebody. I tried to sell them. I'm like, I'm not shipping them overseas. Turns out this guy's in Puerto Rico, was using a remailer. It was a nightmare. I fucking hate dealing. No offense if you're watching this overseas, but mailing shit overseas is just a pain in the ass, and there's a reason I don't do it. And this was it. And it was just a nightmare. That's why I remember that one specifically. It was just a nightmare trying to sell those two figures. The other one was a Mandroid. They did a Build-A-Figure Mandroid, which, if you read the Armor War series,
that's right. That's where I recognize it from. I'm like, that sounds familiar.
There's
one, I did. I read the Armor Wars because
one specific issue where he goes after the Mandroids that Shield was using, and you'll see a lot of people repainting one of the Buzz Lightyear figures that came out as a Mandroid, because it's like spitting image of a Mandroid. I mean, whoever designed that figure clearly likes Mandroids.
Yeah. I always enjoy, like, when I'm watching something, if I can see obvious design elements from something else, I always appreciate that clearly whoever was making that movie was a fan and they gave a design nod to something.
Yeah.
Last weekend I watched the Buzz Lightyear movie, or just Lightyear. I didn't see it in the theater, but I did. I watched it last weekend, and it was good. And Buzz Lightyear had a bunch of different spacesuits in it, and now that you say that, yeah, I could see. Yeah, there was one that looked reminiscent of Shield designed armor. So,
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
And I've seen a couple people do customs of it, and they've done very nice jobs of it. It's all you need is to repaint it, honestly. And it's I contemplated getting one, but I'm like, yeah, it's kind of low hanging fruit even for me. So, and it's not in a scale that I would normally customize. So I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to spend the money. There's other stuff I'd rather have. So, and then, yeah, so the atmospheric armor, that is really nice figure.
Yeah, this is super cool. I mean, obviously he can hang out with my modular Iron Man, and I've got 5 or 6 different War Machines from the Avengers movie lines. I've got the Mark 4 Iron Man armor, the one from Iron Man 2. Because I didn't get the Avengers armor one because
I'm only missing from the 6-inch line. I'm only missing 2 figures that I'm aware of. One is the Marvel, like, they gave it away as a bonus for, like, I think it was the online subscription to the comics series, and that's the comic accurate Pepper Potts rescue armor, which was red and silver.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's
right.
that's a grail figure for me. I've never seen it less than for $125. So yeah, that's one where, you know, maybe if I do a commission for somebody, that's what I'm gonna spend the money on, is that, because that is definitely one of my grail figures. And then there was one from Avengers Endgame that came with Thanos, and I don't remember if it was just a 2-pack or if it was a 3-pack, but it was fairly battle damaged. But it came with Thanos, and I didn't have it. Was like a $70 set or some $50 set at something, and a shit ton of stuff was coming out at that time. And I was just dropping $50 here, $70 here, $50 there on Iron Man sets, and I'm like, I cannot afford another one.
You got to draw the line somewhere.
So there is those two specific. What do you mean we're running out of time? What the fuck? All right. So yeah, Zoom is letting me know that we're running out of time, and I should upgrade to the paid subscription, and I already have. So I'm not sure what the deal with that is. So I guess we will stop this in 10 minutes and restart it, and I will figure this out after the show.
I've got the. I don't have the Iron Patriot from Iron Man 3. That figure at the time I was shopping was an expensive figure. I do have the Iron Patriot armor from Endgame.
I love that armor. That is a beautiful figure.
Yeah, it's huge. It's bulky. I love it. I've got War Machine from Infinity War. I've got War Machine from the Iron Man 2 line. I've got War Machine with, he's mostly gray and silver, but he's got red and orange highlights. It came as a 3-pack with Pepper Potts and the Mandarin. I got Rhodey for cheap. It was like $10.
I'm
yeah.
Not sure. Do you have that handy?
No. I'd have to go find it. Yeah, it's like the arms and legs, or it's like the feet and the hands up to the wrists are like a different color. And then most of them is War Machine, but he's like red, and I don't know what.
No. That's not War Machine. That's the Hot Rod armor. Is it like a flame job?
No. No, it's War Machine on the package. I don't know what the purpose of it was. It was cheap. It was $10 shipped off eBay. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Ooh, you might have something that I don't have, because I can't think of that figure. Go look for it when we pause the show to restart it.
All right. Especially the movie.
For me to tell you what I don't have than what I have, because I try and get pretty much everything Iron Man War Machine that comes out.
Yeah, you've even got a Iron Man standee back there that you can see in the back of the shot.
I do. And I have
which armor is that? Is that the Mark IV armor?
Yes, that is the Mark IV armor.
I am good with Iron Man armors right up until Iron Man 3 with the House Party Protocol, and I sort of lose track after that.
Yeah.
The movie, the comic, he's got so many armors I don't even know. Brian can look at the Iron Man armors and tell the difference, where most of it's lost on me, whereas I can look at the clone troopers from the Star Wars movies and the Clone Wars and identify the units and the individual characters. But for some reason, I can't do that with Iron Man armors. I don't know why.
I'm not as good as I used to be, because I'm not actively collecting that right now, because there's not a lot of stuff coming out.
For somebody who doesn't give a damn about stormtroopers, as I don't, man, give me some clone troopers and I'm in heaven.
Yeah, whereas it's Iron Man all day, every day for me.
You are the Iron Whore after all.
So, and then the other Pulse announcement, which was just a couple days ago, was a modular War Machine, which we were kind of talking about earlier. And it's black and blue, which is an interesting color scheme.
I ended up, somebody posted a screenshot from Marvel vs. Capcom, the video game.
Yeah.
Where War Machine is wearing, he's in the black with the blue armor, and he's facing down Zangief from Street Fighter. So there was a video game element to it.
Okay.
And I need that. I haven't ordered it, but I need it because it's War Machine. But it's super cool, and a lot of people were complaining.
It's just a simple.
Doesn't have the shoulder guns and stuff, but he doesn't in that game either.
No.
And well, that's okay because it's not the difference. It doesn't make him not War Machine.
That particular armor never had shoulder weapons.
Exactly. It's like the people complaining that the Mephisto figure that Hasbro is apparently not going to make because that HasLab is going badly for them. Everybody complaining that he shouldn't be wearing boots. He should have cloven hoofs. No, he shouldn't. Mephisto doesn't have cloven hoofs. He's got feet with boots on them.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're just complaining for the sake of complaining when no, it's accurate. That War Machine figure doesn't have shoulder rocket launchers and machine guns because he didn't have those in that armor.
No, exactly.
So it's uninformed complaining. I mean, if you want to complain, that's fine. But
yeah, and
that War Machine's getting a lot of hate.
I scanned the comments, and there was, definitely a bunch of people that were complaining that it was just a simple repaint of that modular armor that they announced a couple weeks ago, and it is. I mean, it is,
but it works.
Yeah, I like it. It's
for being a repaint. There are lots of repaints that you can bitch about. But why bitch about that one? It's accurate. It's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's a duplicate armor design. People are like them and their repaints. What are they gonna do? A whole new sculpt of something that is exactly the same as something else? That's dumb. But
all right, let's stop it here. Right, so I don't know why Zoom's acting weird because it shouldn't have cut us off at 40 minutes because I'm paying for the subscription now. JD was paying for it earlier. And then when we kind of stopped podcasting for a while, he let it go. And so I picked it up, and it shouldn't have done that. And then when JD signed back onto the new thing, it just let him in automatically. Well, that's kind of interesting. So
interesting. Yeah.
And during the break, JD went to look for his War Machine figure that he couldn't find, and he couldn't find it. But don't worry, I found mine.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So 22. It's the hot rod armor.
All right, so it is what you meant. Okay, because when I bought it off eBay, it was listed as War Machine Mark. I think it was War Machine Mark 2.5 or something. So I'm like, whatever. So
it's somebody that didn't know what it was. And that is the awesome thing about eBay sometimes is people don't know what the fuck they have sometimes.
Yeah, because
shit, I can.
Yeah, because the listing said, because what it had was mostly, I mean, it had a picture of the figure, but of course it had the publicity figures too. And it says, this does not include Pepper Potts or Mandarin, which for $10 shipped, I'm pretty sure it doesn't include Pepper Potts or the Mandarin. But it was listed as War Machine. So, okay.
No, that's somebody that has no clue what they're talking about. So that's one of the things that I would always suggest is if you're looking for something, do after you've cried your eyes out because you've done a very specific search and everything's so fucking expensive, do a more generalized search and see if you can, and it'll take a while to sift through because you'll get the phone book back, but sift through it and see if you can't find what you're looking for from somebody that doesn't know what they got. Because
I was going to say it could be under a different listing. I got my well, you got it too, the War Machine in the throwback or the
Retro.
Marvel Legends, yeah, in the retro carded.
Yeah.
I got it. I haven't opened it. I don't need it because I don't need to open it because it's a repaint of the deluxe comic War Machine that they put out last year. It's just this is what, black and white instead of gunmetal and silver, but it looks so cool in the 90s style packaging. I don't care. I'm happy to put
Let me
it
grab
on the
mine real
wall.
quick. Mine's standing on the wall here, so.
He might call it the man cave or his collection room. I call it his own Hall of Armors because he's got so many Iron Men figures in there. Plus, he's got the armored helicopters from GI Joe and stuff. Yeah, I call it his Hall of Armors. Um, and he's got the flag, and if that's not armored, I don't know what is. So mostly it's just his nerd room.
I forgot that we had talked about a lot of the Iron Man stuff. Oh, there's a little red dog has left me a present. She will be missing that shortly.
I was gonna say she'll come looking for it.
She will. She is a little psychopath when she has a ball. So the figure that JD's talking about is the this
Yes,
came out recently, and it's on the the Toy Biz that was making us, yeah, Toy Biz. So it's the old retro Toy Biz style card, and yeah, it's a War Machine, and yeah, it's on the Toy Biz retro. It's a retro of the Toy Biz card, and the Toy Biz figures were a mixed bag.
oh, that's right. We did talk about those on the last show.
So so let's talk about the Toy Biz stuff for a minute. The Iron Man toy line from the early 90s, which is based off of the cartoon, not the comic book. They came with and I brought in the War Machine from that series. There's two different War Machines. This is there's War Machine, War Machine 2. This is just War Machine. And this is the retro. This is the original. It's not retro, but you can see how the style of the card is very similar. It's a little smaller than the one that they just released because it's a Marvel Legends size figure, and the Toy Biz ones were a little smaller than normal Marvel Legends figures.
It's really cool how well they did the retro packaging.
Yeah,
they captured the spirit of it perfectly.
absolutely they did. The mixed bag about these is they look phenomenal on the card. Because there's a lot of, all of them came with a shit ton of vacuum metalled parts. So JD was explaining what vac metal was on the.
It's chrome. It's shiny. It doesn't matter if it's like the silver chrome or if they painted the chrome. But yeah, either way. But it's made from a much harder, lower grade. It's from a much harder type of plastic that is also prone to breakage, but that is the type of plastic they have to use in order to get that back metal chrome effect on it. So Brian has most of those in the package, which is just as well because if he was to take them out and put the back metal parts, if they're made of gold plastic, they're going to shatter anyways. They're safer in the package than
and
they
a lot
are.
of the Iron Man stuff is gold. And they call that, and see its cards coming off of this. Blister. I'm gonna have to glue that on there.
Yeah, in fact, there's a name for it between Transformers and the Toy Biz stuff from the 90s is GPS, the gold plastic syndrome. Yes. I.e., if it's painted gold, if it's just regular plastic painted gold, it's fine. But if it was cast in gold, like that, like the marbleized type plastic, or like that, yeah, that I guarantee is brittle as hell.
And I'm sure this one is super brittle because Mr. Fantastic has stretch like Stretch Armstrong arms.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Post-it
Yeah,
knife.
that is definitely better left in the package.
And the blisters coming off on this one too, unfortunately. But this isn't a fair example of what I was going to mention, because it actually does look good with the vac metal parts on the figure. But for the most part, once you take the figure off the card and put all the very cool looking vac metal parts on the figure looks like shit, because they all clipped on to the front. So the back was empty, or it clipped onto the arms. Everything clips on. It doesn't, it's, once you get that figure in hand, you get everything, all the accessories on it. It doesn't look good as it did, as my airbrush is still on.
It's a really cool concept, but it's not, doesn't make for the best
stealth armor on this. It's not a knockoff, but it's they did another line, and it's this is the stealth armor is a really good example of that. It looks fantastic on the card. You can see the vac metal is a dark metallic blue. But yeah, once you take it out, this is one I had as a kid. You take it off and you put all the stuff on. It doesn't look as good, and the stuff doesn't stay on very well.
Yeah, it's a nifty idea, but it's definitely a kid focused like type of, because when you're a kid, sometimes you just want the cool, badass, armored up guy, level it up. But it turns out often to not be all that practical. I know, because remember the Batman Returns line they Kenner made? There were 90 different Batmen in that line. They all had all kinds of gear and shit they clipped to them. Terrible. They all take them out of the package, and once that armor was on, except for one, there was one with like an Arctic type snowsuit, but it had like a glass bubble over and that actually looked really cool. But almost all the other Batman figures, once you put all the gear on, it's like, for one, doesn't look like Batman anymore, and for two,
it's a
it doesn't even that armor wouldn't like that. It wouldn't even function anymore. It's just neat idea, terrible result. So
yeah, and that Iron Man line from the comic or from the cartoon is pretty much like that. I do have all of the Iron Man and War Machine figures from that line. There is a couple there's a stealth armor on a Capcom card, and it comes with another figure, and I don't remember who it is, but it's one of the video game figures, and I don't have that one. It seems like there's like maybe 2 or 3 of those figures from that era that I don't have, that are really hard to find. But that Mr. Fantastic and Hydro Armor Iron Man was definitely one of my grails.
Oh, is that what the gold are? It's the Hydro Armor. Okay. Yeah, the
Released
one thing that line did have going for it, if you were buying the Toy Biz lines from that era, they're all 5 inches tall.
Yeah.
But between the toy lines were all spawned by the cartoons that they had on at the era on the time. But some of the stuff in those lines was actually from the comics. But if you were a Fantastic Four fan, or an X-Men fan, or an Iron Man fan, or Spider-Man, I think.
Yeah.
If you wanted their rogues galleries,
you're right. I think there was a Fantastic Four line. Well, obviously, because I have the Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, there was. Because I remember seeing a Gray Gargoyle peg warming a lot. I mean, look, he's a lame ass villain, and his figure was a lame ass figure. So, but I remember that line. I was always impressed by the Rogues Gallery, because the number of villains that they included in those lines was always impressive to me. Like all these, one note comic book villains that they poured it over into the cartoon. Like
yeah, there was a ton of them. There
Red
was
Knight and
Red Knight. There was a really ugly Mandarin with the like, you would know the Mandarin from the cartoon because he was green.
It was green. Yeah, because what Backlash was in there, right?
Spider Woman in the black and white costume with the red hair, because at one point in time I think she was a villain actually.
Yeah, she was what Jessica Drew, right?
Yeah,
Or Jessica Carpenter.
I don't remember. And then yeah, Gray
Um,
Gargoyle. And then yeah, the Fantastic Four line had Black Bolt, the Thing, Mole Man, Terrax, Mr. Fantastic, Silver Surfer, and Doctor Doom. So yeah, here's a nice picture of the. Oh boy.
yeah, yeah, because I remember at KB Toys, there'd always be a lot of gray gargoyles and
Maybe was a big place to get these.
um, but yeah, I remember like uh Wizard magazine would sometimes have pictures of those things, and they always look cool, but I never had any of them. I did buy the X-Men stuff though.
Big surprise there.
But the
Yeah, I don't know that that's gonna, even that super glue doesn't want to stick.
I hate to say it, but these toys were never meant to last as long as they've lasted.
No,
Um,
I yeah, that's really hard to argue. I mean, if that is
um,
and to keep this stuff.
and I mean, I don't think anybody back then would have considered that somebody in 30 years was going to have them hanging on the wall still in a card museum style.
Right?
I think they just rightfully assumed, or most likely assumed,
That they didn't up
the
any.
kids were going to buy them, rip them open, and then they were going to end up in landfill somewhere. Um, but
Yeah, that's the super glue's not even. Oh man, maybe I'll use some hot glue on that. I bet hot glue would stick.
yes,
Yeah, super glue is not sticking.
duct tape.
I don't think I'm ready to go that far. Yeah, super glue is not even touching that stuff. So, oh man, that kind of bums me out. Anyway, those particular figures are not hard to find. The Toy Biz Iron Man from the cartoon, there was an unreleased wave. Most of them are repaints of other armors, and I think there might have been one or two ancillary characters thrown in there. And I don't have that list in front of me, and it would take me a while to find it, but there was an unreleased wave from that, and some of the prototypes did make it out because I've seen pictures of them, but I've never seen them for sale.
And if you did see them for sale, would you be prepared to cough up the cash for them? Probably not.
Probably not, just due to the fact that everything's really expensive right now for, I mean, just the secondary market for action figures right now is just stupid. I mean, I was looking at parts for customs today, and it was just, we were talking about the Televiper from the Arctic 7 pack, and it's people want $45 for that figure, and like, that's a shitty figure. I mean, I
remember those Trooper 7 packs that they had it through like Big Bad Toy Store and stuff. They were clearanced out from Big Bad Toy Store.
Set.
What?
I didn't pay $45 for that set.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that set was like $30, and at the time that all those, I mean, they were all just repaints and Frankenstein Cobra Troopers from the 25th line, and they were in like Arctic, lighter pastel colors, but yeah, they were, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, no, I don't think they were clearance to Big Bad Toy Store, but I do remember them putting them on sale sometimes. So yeah, they were not hard to get because there was a desert set,
yes,
desert Cobra, and there was a snow set for Cobra, and then yeah, those were they were easily obtained.
But so yeah, I don't, and I have a couple of prototype figures, Iron Man prototype figures. I have a couple of 4-inch ones, and then I got the Iron Man prototypes for the mech, and I think we talked about that on another show. For the
because you customize those,
and I caught a lot of shit for that.
And yet, you're proud of them and have no regrets. So,
no.
But I yeah, I figure there's a couple. Now that I bought this, I'm not buying much of anything now due to finances, but at some point it kind of did inspire me. There are maybe a couple of other armors that I might want the figures of, but I'll wait a while on them because the bubble on the secondary market, it has to burst at some point,
Yeah.
and the prices have to come down at some point. Um, so
Yeah.
um,
And I mean, normally we talk about G.I. Joe on the show, and JD is the expert on that. I know a fair amount, but not nearly what JD does. So it's nice that we have Iron Man on the show for a change, because that's kind of my area of expertise.
yeah. Well, considering the number of Iron Man comics that I read within the last decade, because there were ones that Brian recommended to me. Because like I said, I didn't read Iron Man growing up. I didn't read Avengers growing up. They were out there. I was kind of aware of some of the characters, but so I went back, I don't know, within the last decade and read a bunch of, got some graphic novels, got a bunch of, seen some of the most important of the Iron Man stories, like Armor Wars.
Yes.
And then and um there was some stuff from like the 2000s.
Yeah, there's one of my favorite short series was the Hypervelocity series.
That was one of the ones that I read.
Absolutely beautiful read. The art's amazing.
That was the one with the AI, right? They called him Tony Ghost, right? Yeah, that I was a big fan of.
I would love
and then
from the Hypervelocity. So the Hypervelocity armor, they named one of the 4-inch figures from the Iron Man 2 line Hypervelocity, and it's not the same armor from the figure. It's not the same armor from the comic. It just shares the same name. And I really want either a 4, or I would be happy with a 6-inch version of the Hypervelocity armor from that comic book, because it was a unique concept for the armor. I mean, it was just really awesome. I can't even go into it without, because I don't remember like some of the tech that it had, like something in the backpack that like provided perpetual energy. I can't remember what it was, but it was really cool. And they've never used that armor in any other media that I'm aware of, and never made a figure of it. But if you're an Iron Man fan, you haven't read the Hypervelocity series, pretty sure it comes in a trade paperback. If not,
it does, because that's how I read it.
It's a 6-issue mini series, and it's artwork is fantastic. The story is just amazing and very enjoyable.
Yeah, it wasn't yet at the point. Yeah, because
very techno babble heavy. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I think it preceded the release of the first Iron Man movie, or it was around the same era. So Tony Stark in the comics eventually evolved to look more like Robert Downey Jr., but in this series he didn't look like Robert Downey Jr. yet. So it was still,
he's hardly,
it doesn't,
in the series.
Huh?
It's hardly in the series.
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. Is when he does appear, yeah, he doesn't. Like this doesn't.
Tony's hardly in the series, which doesn't make sense. But I won't. I'll ruin the storyline if I.
It makes sense once you read it, but like when he does appear, because there were like flashbacks and thing, and this doesn't have any MCU influence, which did come in later. But it was one of the Iron Man stories that Brian told me to get, and I loved them. And then I started reading like the Marvel Knights War Machine series that they had. And I don't, there were a lot of armors that, well, I'm towards Marvel right now, the Marvel Legends line, they are bringing out some of the comic book armors, because there's one out right now that I don't recognize at all. But it's kind of interesting. You probably have it. It's brand new. But
the red and gold.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah, it's a little bit bulkier looking than the average Iron Man armor. We should move the show into his Hall of Armors back there.
Yeah, I haven't even taken it out of the packaging yet.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, there's a bunch of them at Target right now. Target's
really
got
like
that and Thor and US
like
Agent and Blue Marvel in numbers.
And the artwork on the back is amazing.
Yeah, which armor is that?
I'm not familiar with this. I think it's like an updated. I think it's supposed to be like a. It's supposed to be like an updated version of the classic armor, basically.
Okay.
I want to say it's like the Neoclastic Armor. So the Neoclastic Armor was the armor that Bob Layton is really known for designing and coming out, and that was the armor that was in the comic books when I started reading Iron Man as a kid. So that's one of my favorite armors, and it's red and gold because it followed up the red and silver Centurion armor that he'd been wearing since issue 200, and was destroyed at the end of the Armor Wars series, which was 220. It started at 225 and it ended at 231.
The Silver Centurion armor, it was mostly red, but it had the
red and silver.
Yeah, but it had the silver arms and legs, and it came in a suitcase.
It did,
which you can see it was very clearly my favorite movie armor is the Mark V, which was the suitcase armor. Actually, very clearly inspired by the silver.
He was carrying around in a suitcase.
Huh?
All of his armors at that time he was carrying.
Yeah, but when I read Armor Wars, that's what the first thing he did. The first page, he's got a suitcase out and he puts the Silver Centurion armor on. And that was right. I read this right after Iron Man 2 had come out. So I was like, oh, somebody liked this armor from the comics. They put it into that movie. Because the suitcase armor that he puts on when Whiplash comes out at the race. Yeah, that's my favorite movie armor. And so I'm a little biased for it in the comic too. So I'd like the Silver Centurion armor.
Custom. I did a custom of that. Yeah, I did I've done a couple of customs. So I did a Mark V, like a battle damaged Mark V. And then I did a Silver Centurion of 2020. So I really liked the Iron Man of 2020. It's like it's one of Tony Stark's descendants. I think it's like his cousin's kid in the comic books. He appears in one of the Amazing Spider-Man annuals. I couldn't tell you which one right off the top of my head for the first time back in the 70s. And he's a villain. So he's a bad guy. And I thought, what would us, and he had just a regular Iron Man armor at the time. So the next progression would have been a Silver Centurion armor. So what would a Silver Centurion armor of 2020 look like? And I ended up, I remember that custom specifically because I was stuck on the head and I had no idea what to do for the head on that. And Jimbo said, use this particular head. I'm like, brilliant. Thank you. So shout out to Jimbo for solving that one for me. He had me use one of the comic book Iron War Machine heads, which has kind of that checkered teeth pattern. So it worked perfect.
I think, it's funny you bring up Iron Man 2020, and I was just thinking about that the other day because I remember a couple years ago, Walgreens had an exclusive. They had an Iron Man 2020 figure that was released in 2020, and I was reflecting on that because it's weird because back when Iron Man 2020 was first introduced in the comics, the year 2020 must have seemed like it was a lifetime away.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that that he appeared in the late 70s, early 80s for the first time. So I mean, that
Yeah. So when Iron Man 2020
was way.
was published in the comics, they must have gone with 2020 because it was so far in the distant future that they couldn't even imagine what life after the year 2000 would be yet, because it was still 30 years away. And the idea of 2020, I mean, everybody expected Blade Runner, really.
Yeah.
And while some
That
of
was set
society
2016,
is
if I remember.
reflecting Blade Runner, not all of it. We
Yeah.
still don't have flying cars, which is good because
Or
we can't drive on the roads. Can you imagine people flying around in cars? No, that'd be a disaster. But
that was set
that
in
must have been,
not positive. Or 2000.
but that must have been weird. Like you reading Iron Man decades ago, and then we come up on the year 2020 in the real world. That must have seemed weird that now all of a sudden that it that's as weird as like in 2015 when we bypassed the date for Back to the Future 2. And it's like some of that they predicted accurately what life in 2015 would be. Some of it, not so much. I still want a pair of shoes that will tie themselves, but whatever. Um, I but it must have been weird reading Iron Man 2020 decades ago, and then it's like, wow, here it is. Actually, here it is. Um,
Yeah. Because he appeared in the annual, and then he was in a limited series, and I don't remember much about it other than the fact that I had it at one time. I probably do have it now, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't. My comic book collection has not been touched in probably 4 or 5 years. It's
I was
just
gonna say you're not keeping up on the current books like you used to.
no, not at all. I just can't afford. I can afford one expensive hobby, so it's either photography or it's customizing, collecting, or it's comic books. So it's customizing and collecting right now. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a pretty easy choice. I feel like. Um,
which
well,
kind of segues into what we were going to talk about, which we did talk about on the other show, which was the GI Joe line that we've never reviewed on the show because it is esoteric. I think is probably a good word for it. It's just so overlooked. I think maybe one of the reasons why is it was post 94. These are still O-ring figures. It was right before the release of the new sculpted figures, and they're, for the most part, they're just straight repaints. And you've heard definitely me bag on repaints before for sure, but man, this 1997 and 1998 line of GI Joe figures, even though they are mostly repaints, are amazing figures. This all got started because JD had built a classified low light version 2 figure for himself, and I'm like, dude, I want to paint that. Send it to me so I can paint it. So he sent it to me, and as I'm working on it, my dogs are going crazy. I think there's a deer up front. Either that or Amazon's delivering something. So as I was working on it, I'm like, you know what? I need a 91 low light figure to go, because I didn't have one. So I got on there and I got a 91 low light, and I noticed, of course, that most people know that the Dino Hunter low light is the same mold, just with different hair color and obviously more neon colors. But I noticed there was one in between those that was the same mold, but kind of muted grays and blues. And I didn't remember that one. And it was fantastic. And then I started looking at other stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, Lieutenant Gorky was in there. There's that version 2 Snow Serpent that is in version 1 colors and is amazing. And those 3 figures are figures that I have here with me, so I'm going to show those as we talk about it. But
part of the reason why the 97 and 98 lines are overlooked is because they were exclusive to Toys R Us.
Ah, well, there you go.
That both years, yeah, because the vintage Joe line ended in 1994. There was a bunch of stuff set for release in 2000 or in 1995, but it didn't happen because they canceled the line. So all that stuff that was in the process of being made, even the ones with molds and stuff, prototypes and stuff, yeah, it all fell by the wayside. But a couple of years went by, and Toys R Us wanted exclusives. They wanted the CGI Joe back on the market. So they ordered a round of figures to be repainted for Hasbro in time for the Christmas of '97 shopping season. Well, they didn't have a long timeline on it when Toys R Us ordered it, or when they requested it in the first place. And Toys R Us, it was of the big box stores, it was one of the most powerful. So pretty much, if they were requesting the toy companies makes exclusives for them, it's like, well, yeah, of course. So they wanted a set of 3-packs, and they wanted a box set, and they wanted vehicles. So basically, the Hasbro team at the time had to go see what they had. They did a bunch of hand painted prototypes. Like, they took old figures and they painted up in proposed colors for this revival line at Toys R Us. Well, you can find them all on Yojo, all the pre-production archives, some of which Brian might edit into here because, hey, we can't use technology. We can't figure out how to do the screen sharing thing.
Screen sharing is not working.
But if you look at these pictures,
I think
the
it might
lineup. Yes. Oh, yes. Actually. All right. Hang on. I wasn't expecting that. Hang on.
I wasn't either, but I think when our meeting quit the first time, I think it might have updated Zoom and a lot of stuff got fixed. So, because we'll see here shortly if this times out. I'm kind of thinking it might not time out.
It might not. Hang on.
Is there like a timer on this somewhere? How long have we been going?
I
probably, but I have no idea where it is. So, we'll see if JD can screen share, because one of the figures that he was talking about in that pre-production was an ally.
Oh, I can. Yeah, hang on. Yep, I got the screen share. All right.
Let's see if it works on the show. So if in the event it doesn't work, hey, it's us. We're Luddites. What do you want?
All right. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it very nicely.
All right, good. So if you go to the 1997 archive, mine's already purpled because I frequently go back and look at this. You'll see the list of figures that they were going to release. All of these, everything in this list was released, just not in the original form that they were looking for, because this is the complete lineup of what they released that year. But some of them were drastically different when they were released, because you can see that it's a version 1 Cobra Commander that they printed up that they painted up in much darker blues and bronze. It didn't happen. They didn't have the Cobra Commander, the version 1 mold. So they had the only mold they had available was the 1987 battle armor. So they did go with the dark blue, but it did have a little bit of the bronze color, but it lost most of that.
Yeah,
and they had to go
bronze at all on that, but I didn't have that figure. I like that blue battle armor. I think it works well.
No, I take that back. I think the chest has gold on it. That piece of armor, yeah, I think, but Otherwise, yeah, there wasn't. It was all blue and black. But if you look, the Viper that was released here, clearly you can see it's the complete version 1 Viper. This figure was released with Battle Android Trooper legs in that color scheme and packaged with the flight pod or the trouble bubble. They didn't have the Viper version 1 legs, so they had to find a substitute because the Viper version 1 waist and legs were originally released on Dr. Mindbender, the Battle Corps version from 1993. The last time 1993 Mindbender was seen was down in South America in the Estrella line. So somewhere between there and Hasbro putting together this 1997 line for Toys R Us, Dr. Mindbender was gone, Viper legs were gone, so they used the Battle Android Trooper legs. Firefly was not released this year, but you can see it was version 1. Firefly would be released in 1998, but here you can see the Alley Viper is in a color scheme similar to what actually happened.
Yeah.
But again, they didn't have the full Alley Viper. Actually, because right here you can see it's version 1 of the Alley Viper. They didn't have it. They didn't have the tooling. They had most of the Battle Corps Alley Viper that they had to substitute Duke's legs because the original Battle Corps Alley Viper used the version 1 waist and legs. Again, yeah, they didn't have them.
And if you're looking at that Viper and you're wondering where have you seen that before, that came out with the Trouble Bubble in the 25th in the same colors.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that they did a 25th nod. In the 25th line, they did a nod to the 97 line, which didn't happen all that often.
Yeah,
but
I thought the same thing, and then I started looking through stuff, and I'm like, when I started digging through the old G.I. Joe stuff, it's really kind of surprising how frequently actually it did happen, especially in the collectors club.
Well, because hardcore collectors and enthusiasts, there does tend to be love for these lines. But
one of those sets that we were talking about was the Arctic 7-pack, and that Snow Serpent that is in that is exact color scheme of the Flaming Moth Snow Serpent.
Oh yeah. See,
I didn't catch that when it came out. I remember those figures. I remember both those figures when they came out because I passed on the Flaming Moth sets at the time. But I recently got those a couple years ago, and I was going through my stuff, setting it all up on the flag, and I'm like, holy shit, this is the exact color scheme. I mean, yellow goggles and everything from that set. And the Ice Viper that was released in the Collectors Club figure subscription service is the exact same color scheme from the Flaming Moth as well.
See, people do like these. They got overlooked.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Joe lineup here, Lady J came out, but she wasn't in that desert camo color. Roadblock did not come out in 97. Duke did in a completely different color scheme. He was packaged with the Silver Mirage motorcycle, which in 97 was somehow even more brittle and finicky than the original Silver Mirage. So really, if you have the 1997 Silver Mirage motorcycle, if it's open and it's assembled, don't look at it wrong or it'll fall apart. But Duke was included that with only half of its accessories. And one of the sad tragedies, 97 line, is that if you look at the 3-pack that had Lady J, Storm Shadow, and Snake Eyes, that package has the art from version 2 of Snake Eyes. They didn't have the mold.
Right.
So they had to repaint version 1 a second time. What is that? I didn't and repack it. But yeah, unfortunately, they didn't have the version 2 mold. So a lot of what they wanted to do, a lot of what they wanted to do with 97, they couldn't. And so what they ended up with was a lot of neat ideas that, due to the short timetable of production before they had to be ready, lack of availability of some of what they wanted to use, and some things that they had to sort of throw together and rush into, some of it turned out to be better than others.
Yeah, that is for sure. Because we talked about the Stars and Stripe box set, and that is, well, like the Stalker in that is just a work of art. Most of the rest of the stuff that's in that box set is utterly forgettable.
Yeah, it's mostly junk. I needed an actual mouse for this laptop, which I do not have. So if you look at the hand painted prototype, it's version 1 of Stalker in this kind of complex camouflage, which the production figure actually did wind up looking pretty similar. Yeah, here's the. So I mean, not it's different camo, but it's still pretty good. But
Yeah,
really,
fantastic.
if you look at Stalker, he's one of the few winners in that box set, because originally what they wanted to do with the Stars and Stripes set was they wanted a whole tribute to the early Joe line for the anniversary. Or I mean, they wanted to celebrate the 1982 releases, but what they found was half of those tools were long gone. So Flash wasn't included because his mold didn't exist. Rock and Roll and Breaker, because the bearded head mold was gone, and so were most of their toolings, like the short sleeves and everything, we ended up with nonsense like this. All right, see, look at that cool hand-painted prototype that should have been. Instead, we end up with this Frankenstein nonsense right here. Sheesh. What that is, I mean, it's the 1986 Hawkhead, the 1986 Roadblock torso and legs and waist, and his arms. So it's supposed to be rock and roll, but it wasn't.
It's hideous.
Breaker wasn't included, and he's an even weirder Frankenstein.
Yeah, this is the Breaker. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a blog. There's a G.I. Joe blog that I used to read called Joe a Day.
Yes.
The guy who ran this blog, named Robert Booston, he would, for years, like for, I don't know, most of a decade, I think he was doing this blog. And every day, every weekday at least, there'd be a picture or two of a particular Joe in his collection, and he'd do a write-up about it. Well, I very specifically remember there was a Thanksgiving post for Joe a Day where he said, I don't have a lot to say about this, but happy Thanksgiving. Here's a turkey of a figure. It was that crappy Breaker. He's like, what a piece of junk. And basically, this Breaker is sad. It's sad in every way. Yeah. It's sad because it doesn't look like Breaker. It's sad because it's a half-assed Frankenstein. It's
whose head is
tragic. Hawk, okay. 1986 Hawk again. Except, yeah, sadly, badly painted. So in that box set,
somebody bought that face off for $50.
Oh, lame.
Yeah. Anyway, I just got the auction ended. So,
because in the prototype, yeah, Breaker was supposed to be colored a lot like Sparks from the Sunbow cartoon, but they didn't have the mold. They didn't have his headset. They didn't have anything. So basically, what we ended up with was Snake Eyes, Stalker, and Scarlet weren't bad, but really the rest of the set was, I mean, Zap was okay, Short Fuse was okay, Grunt could have been okay, except he suffered from paint issues. But it's the only way to get short fuse as a ginger. What the hell? God, I really am just what's happening here. All right. So they don't even have short fuse listed on. He's so forgettable. He's not even listed on the Ojo page.
Those
but
are the pre-production figures.
Yeah, I know. I thought they'd have short fuse listed here too, but no. One of the things they did have, one of the interesting outside the Stars and Stripes forever notorious set, was they had a bunch of 3-packs.
Yes.
There was an Arctic Mission 3-pack that included Blizzard, Iceberg, and Snow Job. Well, Blizzard was supposed to be the 1988 figure repainted. They didn't have the tooling, so they went with the Battle Core Frostbite, which is fine because honestly, not an iconic version of Frostbite, not a particularly memorable figure. You can see in the hand painted that that's supposed to be Blizzard.
Right.
They didn't end up doing it. They ended up painting Frostbite and it's fine, as you can't even tell it was ever Frostbite. So I think it was an okay. I think it was horrible. It's pretty decent solution. But really, most of those 3-packs were really well done, and they were really interesting. We got Lady J decked out in all black and like a stealth mission.
Yeah.
We had Storm Shadow in that set that was packed. It was reminiscent of the Ninja Force. And the prototype, the production figure ended up looking like this. So it had a paint scheme that was pretty similar to Ninja Force. So they had a lot of really cool stuff. Iceberg in this set was amazing, and so was Snow Job. I really like the finished versions that we got. So these Mission 3-packs were actually really cool. That's awesome.
I like this the subtle paint apps. That's one of the things that they really went to town with on this line, was the almost the airbrushing style, or some of them had like airbrushing, some of them had like washes. And you didn't see that before or since.
No. I was gonna say you definitely didn't see it in the vintage line. You're right. Haven't seen much of it since, but they had something going with 97. If you can overlook, some of them are made for some pretty shoddy plastic. The vehicles are real fragile. Like if you get the Ace came with a repaint of the Rattler, like it's a green repaint of the Cobra Rattler plane. It is a super brittle plane. It doesn't stand up. It doesn't stand the test of time. But they had a couple of. The vehicles weren't great, but the toys, they were. The figures were. Man, look at that Flash. That could have been awesome. But again, they didn't have his tooling. But that's right. That's why they included. Oh, that's why short fuses and that they had to put him in instead, because Flash wasn't available. Look, it's a ginger short fuse. That's interesting, at least. Huh. But the 97 line had a lot of interesting additions to the line. It was the first time. It was version 2 of the Baroness was in blue, but it was a complete but we never had a version 2 of Baroness. There was supposed to be one in 1995, an all new sculpt, all new design, but she never happened. So the 97 line, that is where we got Baroness version 2. That is what she's all blue. And honestly, I kind of prefer her in the blue to the black, like the original figure. I know it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Apocryphal to say, but I can't help it. I like the Baroness wearing blue.
I think
makes
it
her
works.
feel,
I think it works well.
but yeah, but where they really hit their stride was the 1998 line,
Absolutely.
where there is more magic in 98 than there is there's only a couple of figures that are sort of but really for the most part, I think I think they I think most of these figures they knocked them out of the park. And so Brian, you didn't have any of those, right?
I
Because
did
at the
not.
time,
I never.
like,
I
you weren't buying this stuff.
No, there was not a Toys R Us. I was 98. I was in the Navy. So I was just coming home from the Navy, and just gotten started working at the hospital here in town. So I mean, I was, I was still living with my mom when I got back from the Navy, and there, I'm sure there was a Toys R Us here, but I was definitely not collecting because I went to EMT school in '96.
Yeah, because in 98 I graduated high school that year, but before the 97 line came out, I knew it was coming out. That was on the Yojo Pit mailing list online. So we knew it was coming out. We knew it was coming out before the holidays. And I was working at Sears that year. But that Sears that I worked at was in a shopping center with the Toys R Us.
Yeah, that's
So
handy.
on my lunch break one day, I walked down to Toys R Us, and I went back to work with the Cobra Command 3-pack, so Baroness Destro and Cobra Commander, and the stealth set with Lady J, Storm Shadow, and Snake Eyes. And I walked in with my Toys R Us bag, and my coworkers were like, "Oh, what'd you buy at Toys R Us?" So I pulled them out. I showed them. I'm like, "These are exclusive to Toys R Us." I'm pretty sure they didn't care, but I simply never outgrew GI Joe. Never did. So, but I remember when the '98 line came out, we had seen pictures of them, and they were hard to believe because coming off '97, which had some was up and down, sort of with the highs and lows. It was kind of hard to believe that the 1998 line was going to look as it did, as well as it, but it did.
It did.
They matched the pictures. It looked really cool.
So let's talk about the first. Let's go to the let's pick one random here. The October Guard set. So let's talk about the figures that were in the October Guard set.
Okay. We will start with Colonel Breckov. This was exciting to me because as an October Guard fan from when I was a kid, because I saw them first on the cartoon, where they had a different lineup than in the comics, but Larry Hama created them for the comic.
Yeah.
And we never got the comic book characters in the original toy line for legal reasons. But in 1991, we did get Red Star, and in 92, we got Big Bear, who were not from the comics, but they were October Guard, and I was excited. Well, in 1998, we got the first ever Colonel Breckov figure. It's a repaint of Red Star, but I didn't care. It was Breckov. We finally had a figure of him. And he was released with Volga and Lieutenant Gorky. Volga is actually Dana, but they couldn't call her that for legal reasons.
Right. And this one, it's one of the few that has a new head sculpt. It's not.
Yes,
entirely...
she's got an all new head sculpt and a really detailed camo paint scheme.
Awesome.
The original figure was hand painted. The original figure that they used as a prototype was a hand painted Lady J with the new head sculpt. It was painted by a collector named Thomas Wheeler, and he turned it in. And even though they changed the paint from his prototype, it actually looked fairly similar. She's got a really detailed. She's got a more detailed camo job than we usually saw in the Joe line. So it was exciting for that. Lieutenant Gorky, I was stuck on it even in '98.
I have here.
I did not mind this figure, except that I wish
he's the Naval Commando, so he's the equivalent to the SEALs. So I had to get one, and I did a custom of it recently too. Shortly before we'd recorded the first time of this through this.
Yeah, Brian, he had said that, yeah, because he was making a Lieutenant Gorky custom. It was based on the 1998 figure, and he texted me one day. He's like, most of these 98 figures are expensive, but he said, Lieutenant Gorky's not. I said, no, Gorky and Breckov, you can get them for pretty decent prices. I'm like, don't try to get vulgar for a decent price. But I was excited to finally have a Lieutenant Gorky figure. I got hung up on the fact that I didn't mind that they gave him a beard because it was a Big Bear repaint. I was hung up on the fact that the beard should have been blonde because Gorky was blonde in the comics, but I nitpicked that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it didn't change the fact that I was happy to finally have some of the October Guard members from the comics, and I was elated. They really, and they hit they really did something special with that set, because they really, as much as it's sad that those first releases were exclusives, I was glad that they happened at all.
So talking about Gorky there, he was Naval Commando. Let's talk about the Navy set that came out, the Navy SEAL set that came out that year. Next.
Brian might be biased because he's a nerd for SEALs, but
I've seen some of these figures up for sale recently, and I almost pulled the trigger on them because they weren't too expensive, and I'm like, I just don't have the money right now. I shouldn't.
Torpedo version 3 is a straight up repaint of the 1992 wetsuit.
Yeah.
But damned if it doesn't work. Look at this color scheme. He's all stealthy. It's amazing. It really, wait, is there a picture with him geared up? Yeah, because he's got well, firstly, he actually had paint highlights. The light on his helmet is painted yellow. And yeah, they don't have a picture of him geared up, do they? No. Oh, here we go. Here's the whole carded 3-pack, though, with the Battle Corps shipwreck, the original wetsuit, and torpedo. And holy shit, that is cool.
I do like that set. I like I said, I saw all 3 of them from different sellers recently for not insane amounts of money, and I almost pulled the trigger on them because it's like, these are SEALs that I don't have, and I'm like, I couldn't justify it. But I love the color scheme on this. The black, silver, and the teal just works well.
It's rare in the GI Joe line to see a unified color scheme for a squad. Yeah. Because even common themes like Night Force or Tiger Force, they didn't do uniform color schemes in general. They tended to have common elements throughout, or maybe a common range of color palette, but they didn't have matching uniforms like this. This was an interesting new twist on Joe, and I think it worked. I think it worked. It's
the torpedo. It still hurts my head seeing the version 2 wetsuit being called torpedo. I mean, it's yeah, but I like it though.
I think it worked. I think what it had going for it, I mean, maybe not the mullet head sculpt, that,
and not such a light skin tone for someone.
Right. He is Hawaiian. He should have had a different color scheme. I mean, he should have had a more accurate skin tone. And yeah, I don't necessarily think the mullet works for him, but it was the first torpedo figure that wasn't based on that super skinny version 1. And so it was, if you change the head sculpt out, if you put a tunnel rat head or something on him, so he looks more, I think it works.
Yeah, I like that too.
But I mean, Shipwreck was a repaint of the 94 Shipwreck, which
I think is probably one of the best seal figures they've ever made ever.
yeah, I mean, and that it's only the second use for that mold. And a lot of people had missed that version of Shipwreck because while some of the 94 stuff hung around for years and went on clearance, some of it didn't. The Battle Core stuff, like the core figures, the main part of the toy line, those didn't all hang around. So Shipwreck was missed by collectors then. This was a second chance to get him. And this was the first time Wetsuit looked subtle because version 1 had that
black and gray.
Well, no, Wetsuit. The original was that weird.
Light teal and orange.
Yeah, it was that weird, sea green color, and he was bright orange. He did have a silver repaint in the Mission Brazil Toys R Us set from 1986, but yeah, nobody.
And then his version 2 and version 3 were Battle Core, so it was black, which was cool, and then bright yellow or bright orange,
which I happen to love, but it's not particularly realistic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the version 2 figure myself.
But this was Wetsuit in a realistic seal type, color scheme, and holy shit, it worked. The whole 3-pack worked nicely.
Nothing not to like about that. It's a version 1 figure in a realistic color scheme.
And he had his original accessories, but in black.
Yes.
You can't, because even the silver repaint from the Mission Brazil Toys R Us set, even that just had his original gear. So it was still the bright orange sled and the bright orange backpack with a snazzy silver wetsuit.
All right. So what else do we have from 98 there? Let's go back to that page. Talked about the steel set, and we talked about let's talk about the Cobra Polar Force, since I've got
I love this.
Which I am currently working on modern customs of these figures right now.
Here's the 1998 Snow Serpent. It is made from the same mold as the 1991 redesign of the Snow Serpent. Ryan's got one.
Yeah, just got one like 2 days ago.
Yeah, the 91 Snow Serpent was a complete redesign of the Trooper class. It was in this weird tan color and white with a purple head wrap or the mask, and the goggles were red, but it was repainted in a 1993 mail-away set of Snow Troopers, but it's expensive. It's hard to get a hold of. It's very prone to discoloring. So most of the ones that I've seen online, they were originally done in this cool like ice blue color for the arms and legs, but with the discolored plastic, usually they're 2 different colors of blue, and they shouldn't be. But that figure, it's hard to get a hold of. But in my opinion, this is the superior use of that mold.
Absolutely. I absolutely love this figure. I like
gray. I like
this
light blue, this white.
Yeah. I feel like mold, but I did not like the color scheme it came in. No. There was too much yellow. I'm from Colorado where it snows a lot, and yellow snow is something that you actively avoid. So yellow on an Arctic Trooper just doesn't work for me. However, this is very close to version 1 colors on a version 2 body, and it's beautiful.
And it included the accessories, so he had the snowboard that the 1991 figure had, but it was in that same matching gray blue color.
Yeah.
Because the original was purple.
I love that.
And then
one of my favorite accessories.
And then the backpack, held the snowboard, but the
Not very well.
The 93 the 93 Malloway version did not include those accessories.
Not.
But I was glad that the 98 figure did, because at the time that I got this 3-pack, I was glad to have the Snow Serpent, because I did have the 91 version when it came out.
I did too.
And I was put off a little bit by the colors, not the brightness, just the color combination.
Yeah, the colors, the brightness didn't bother me. It's the color.
Yeah, it was the weird, the yellow fur and the tan, slightly darker brown leather of the boots.
I have one, but he's sitting on the deck of my flag. I won't.
Yeah, it's not.
I won't grab it.
Not a great color scheme, but the 98 version came in the 3-pack, the Night Creeper, and a Firefly, and we had never seen Firefly in Arctic colors before. But holy shit, how cool is that?
Oh, man, it's beautiful.
It's like a ghostly apparition saboteur. It is awesome.
I love this figure. I wish I had bought this. Wish I had this full set.
I wish you could get the full set now without paying through the nose for it.
Yeah, I didn't pay a lot for my Snow Serpent. I got a really good deal on it. I got it for about $20, which just blew me away. I saw that it was complete. I'm like, I gotta get it. I'm not gonna see it again for $20.
Hell no, I can't believe you got it for that cheap. That's kind of amazing, actually.
Yeah.
This
look at the Night Creeper as well.
Yeah. I actually had 2 of these sets at the time, because I wanted one of each. I wanted two Night Creepers and 2 of the. Look at this. This Night Creeper is so much better
than the version 1 Night Creeper.
I understand why the version 1.
I understood it, but it didn't work for me. I like the camo. I love the concept of the Tech Ninja. I think it's a fantastic idea. It just, again, it's not the brightness, it's the colors. It just didn't work. This works amazingly well.
Yeah, the first Night Creeper was that dark maroon, burgundy, purple type color, and it looked cool.
It's the custom that I'm working on of that.
But yes, this is everything the Night Creeper should have been. And yeah, there's Brian's custom. I loved this figure. And this figure worked so well that one of the figure subscription services did have a Night Creeper, and it was in this color scheme. And I do have that, figure.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do. I bought it on eBay.
They updated the parts on that particular figure.
Yes, it didn't have. Yeah,
and it works.
It didn't have the gawky 25th parts on it anymore. It used a lot of
Storm Shadow
parts.
Yeah,
and it worked. I can't go dig the figure up right now. I've got it. I've seen it, but
yeah,
I'm not going to go look at
that. Because anytime I do a custom of a pre-existing character or pre-existing figure, I will look at all of the versions of that pre-existing character or figure and try and see if there's different elements that I can work in to what I want. And so, like mine, I'm doing. I took elements from the Retaliation Tech Ninja, which I think is what the Night Creeper should have been. I like the color scheme. I like the camo. I love the like unigoggle night vision helmet head. I think it's a fantastic figure. It's very overlooked from that line. Very nice army builder. And then I was looking at the figure subscription service, Arctic Night Creeper, and I'm like, wow, man, they updated the parts. I ran and I'm like, I don't remember mine looking that good. So I ran and grabbed my 25th version Night Creeper, because I knew I had one somewhere, and it's sitting on the deck of the flag with all the rest of my Cobra stuff. And man, the parts that they used on that figure subscription service are so much better than what they used on the 25th version. It works so much better. And I try to incorporate a little bit of that into this as well by using different legs than what the 25th, than just repainting a 25th Night Creeper. I mean, that's one of the things that I didn't like about the 25th Night Creeper, that I didn't like about the version 1, is it was really skinny. And I don't know, it just kind of put me off on that. And the colors, like I said, the color scheme, I don't hate it. It doesn't quite work for me. But the Night Creeper, this the Arctic one, both the vintage one here, the 1998, and the figure subscription service, both are fantastic figures. And we'll pause it, wait for JD to get back. So I got to say, definitely one of the downsides to customizing figures, pre-existing figures, and not having them in your collection is not having them in your collection, because now you want them,
and with good reason, because I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Like I said, at the time I had 2 of these sets. I don't have them anymore. Yeah. But I don't know, they were really cool. The other was the last 3-pack from that year was Cobra Officer and the Cobra Troopers. For all intents and purposes, they were Cobra Vipers. But this was the first time that we'd seen a troop commander in a separate color scheme, and it was great. Now, they've done tributes to this since a couple of times.
Yes.
But it was interesting.
And I can't think of it. Can't think of when.
They did, well, the 50th Cobra Viper was gray, and it had like red highlights on it, so not an exact, but it was inspired by.
I missed all the 50th stuff. So
well,
most of the 50th stuff JD got for me, because it didn't show up here when it came out. Anything that I got from that time period at that time, JD got for me, and anything I've gotten since has been secondary market, obviously.
And at the time, I was able to get them for him because I would go to Toys R Us and I would see them and I would get them, and then I would never see them again. But this 3-pack had 1 gray Cobra Officer, and it had 2 Cobra Troopers. And I remember people wanted to go crazy for this, because they could call them officers and troopers on the package, but let's face it, they're Vipers, and people could army build them.
Yes.
Without having to go back and get a bunch of version 1s that may or may not have their gear. These guys included, they were generic weapons, because they had the weapons loadout from the 1991 Dusty, but in black. So the rifle and the pistol, they were black, because Dusty had brown versions. But yeah, they had a rifle and a pistol, so you could army build them, and they were ready to fight, straight out of the package.
I think there's a lot to love about this, and a lot of it flew under the radar, because, as JD said, it was exclusives to Toys R Us at the time, and I had forgotten that they were exclusives. Here's a nice picture of everything from that year. I forgot. That's a good way to do it. And I will be the first one to admit, I am one of the first people that will bag on Hasbro for repainting stuff, but God damn if they didn't do it right. This is what repaint should be.
Yes. And out of the 1998 line, we got 2 brand new characters, one of which meant nothing to anybody, because it was a straight up head to toe repaint of Thunder. They called it Thunder Wing. They made it a separate character. I don't know why they didn't just make him Matthew Breckenridge, who was Thunder in the comics, other than Larry Hama had killed him off in issue 109 of the G.I. Joe line. But I don't know if that's why they made him a separate character or not, but they called this guy Thunder Wing. So technically he's a separate character, although I have talked to people that just used him as Thunder because he included the goggles and the headset and the helmet from Thunder. So if you outfit this guy with all of his stuff, he just looks like Thunder in different colors.
Yeah. I'm assuming they lost the, well, I was gonna say assuming they lost the license, but yeah, it doesn't help that Larry Hama killed him off in the comic.
Yeah, so I mean, it could have been a combination of those things. I mean, if they wanted him to be Thunder, but they couldn't call him that, so they called him Thunderwing and made him Matthew Breckenridge, people would have been fine with it. But as it is, he wound up being a one and done character. That
Thunderwing sounds like something you get at Wingstop.
Yeah, Thunderwing, I believe there was a Transformer with that same name.
Yes.
So
yes, I believe
so. Yeah, correct. It's kind of a. I think it was because they had the code name or they had the copyright for it. They went with it.
Is that the triple changer? The tank and airplane that's tan and purple?
Yeah. No, wait. No, I think that's Blitzwing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Blitzwing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there is a G1 character named Thunderwing. So obviously they still had the name. But they made him a separate character. But I mean, I do like the motto. I mean, it says off his file card, Cobra tanks are smoking craters waiting to happen. All right. You gotta admire attitude kind of like that. But he's mostly a forgettable character that he was packaged with a Mobat that also came with a repaint of Heavy Duty, which was actually in a pretty badass color scheme. It was the first repaint of Heavy Duty that we got.
That is a nice repaint too. I
yes.
like that more than the version 1, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean this was really well done. So I mean, and the Mobat that they included was the original Mobat, but it actually had airbrushed black camouflage on it,
which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, and it is really cool. The Mobat had never looked that cool.
No.
But yeah, Thunderwing being a new character, he's overlooked. He's forgotten about. The other new character from that year is anything but forgotten about. She actually has a quite a sizable fan following. Vipra was released with the Cobra Rattler 4-wheel drive, which is it was an update of the Cobra Stinger, yes. Which was the Cobra version of the Vamp. But
it's one of my favorite versions. It's my favorite version of the Vamp. However, the Cobra Rattler, this is not a really good picture of it.
Actually. It's not a good picture. It's got the airbrush spray ops in the white and blue over the body. Otherwise, it's the Stinger, but Viper was available in the same colors. So it wasn't very often that we saw a figure that actually looked like the vehicle, a driver that actually was painted like in the colors that the vehicle was. But in this case, I think it worked really well.
It's I really like that version of it's called the Rattler, which is very confusing. A Rattler 4-wheel drive, which is really confusing because then you start confusing it with the plane. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
1984 Rattler jet. Yes.
Yeah, I have to assume they still had the Rattler trademark, but they didn't have the Stinger, which is probably why they did that. But you're right, it creates all kinds of confusion. But it came with this Viper character. She's an all new character, and she's a complete repaint of Jinx. Yeah. But in that color scheme, the fact that she was a repaint of Jinx was it made no never mind to anybody. She has a lot of fans. She's cool. I mean, the club has made Vipra. I think in IDW comics, I think she appeared and she was a courier for Cobra, and that's what the club's version was. But it was an update of this character.
There a DTC?
What's that?
Wasn't there a DTC Vipra too? Hold them.
No, there was. They reused the name Vipra in 2004 for a pair of twins who were ninjas. Not the same character.
Something else. I don't remember what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the Vipra from 2015 was a Cobra Courier. But I remember some people lamenting at the time that she didn't have the gray and white spray ops color scheme, camouflage. And yeah, okay, they had a point. It's kind of a bland looking figure. It did add a lot of character. But now if you read her file card, even though the character is a ninja, figure's a ninja, her file card reads more like she's a dreadnought. She's a little bit on the rough and tumble side. But her file name, Ann A. Conda.
Oh my God, I just noticed that.
It was a joke. It was not meant to be serious. Thomas Wheeler, who did the Vipra hand-painted prototype, he jokingly suggested Ann A. Conda as a code name or as a file name, and they went with it.
Oh, I actually like stuff like that.
I do too, but
it's very reminiscent of the Dreadnoks, the Ripper, Buzzer, and Torch's names.
You mean with Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Wink and Blink and a Nod?
Yes.
Me too. I mean, Alpine's file name is Albert Pine.
Yes,
I like it. Cutter's code name or file name is Skip Stone. Skip A. Stone. I like a good play on words like that. So Ann A. Conda being
always loved that kind of stuff. I remember seeing Alpine. I remember seeing Cutters. There's a couple more in there like that. I can't think of them.
Yeah, there are a couple of other joke code names, or file names. But honestly, Ann A. Conda, it works for me.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But I mean, look, from General Hawk's files, here's the quote. Where does Cobra find people like this? She looks small and slight, but she drives a Rattler like she's in a monster truck show. When I was in the Army, I knew a girl who was the same thing. She drove a pickup truck, and her entire weekends, every weekend, was off-roading in her truck. When we were training for the when we were training in the Humvees to get our Humvee certifications, she drove the Humvee. Now it's a military Humvee. These things can survive anything. They can drive through just about any sort of terrain. Like we're driving on Fort Sill in Oklahoma, and we're in the back, completely wilderness part back of the base. And there were all these little watering holes that we just fly right through in this Humvee. Well, the only thing that stopped it was there was actually a really big sinkhole that somehow Redland managed to drive just directly over, and it got stuck. We're like, Redland found a way to actually stop the Humvee. But we had to get the tow truck out there and everything because it turns out it was about this deep. So really, nobody's fault. But it was just funny because Viper had this file card, and then later on, I actually met somebody that was like this. I'm like, yeah, it makes it as much as sometimes file cards can seem a little over the top. When I actually met Redland, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. There are people like this. Yeah. Vipra, she's not a forgotten character. She is obscure,
Yes.
but she is not a forgotten character. And I've even seen people saying that they wish they'd make a classified version. And if they do, I can see them replicating that with the camo and everything. And I kind of hope they do.
And I think one of the other figure that vehicle driver that you didn't touch on was the repaint of the Conquest, and it's a repaint of the Ace version 1 and in gray, and it's
oh yeah, you're right. Oh yeah, and I
so
stopped the
easy for that
screen share.
figure. It's $400 or $500.
Yeah. Well, Ace alone, yeah, it's version 1 Ace from head to toe with the astronaut suit. It was an experimental flight suit, but I understand why people call it the astronaut suit. But it's dark gray and black, and it goes for as much as the plane does on the secondary market. In the last 2 weeks, I've seen 2 of them listed in the Facebook groups, and they were all for well above 100. In fact, somebody had the one listed that I saw today. It's like 200, and I'm pretty sure there was a update later that said sold. That Ace figure,
I've seen him go for twice that.
yeah, I was gonna say he is a sought after figure, and there's a reason for it. He's a great repaint of a figure that was common at the time. And yeah, he came with a camouflage green Conquest jet
with airbrush details on it. Yeah, it's the 90, 97, 98 figures aside from the Stars and Stripe box set. This is, I mean, we every time we review like a line of GI Joes, whether it be like Real American Hero or DTC or Valor versus Venom or Joe versus Cobra or Pursuit of Cobra, we always talk about, there's these hidden gems, and this entire wave is a hidden gem. There is not a stinker in any of these
outside of that box set. Yep.
Aside from the box set, the 3-packs, all of these figures are amazing figures, and they're all repaints, but they are all amazing repaints. We didn't. I was going to show the low light because I've got the low light here. So there's the 97 low light.
No, he's from 2000.
Oh, is that? Oh, yeah. Sorry, that is the 2000. Sorry, I don't know why I thought he was in. I was like, who did he? He didn't come with 2 other figures. He came with one. Now that's the 2000. The 2000 it was kind of a continuation of that greatness.
It was
not to the same degree, though. I don't think
2000 is when they stopped being Toys R Us exclusives. They decided, let's reintroduce Real American Hero to the wide market so all the stores could carry them. And
I think we did a show on that recently.
Yeah, we did. What followed was, well, not with the same attention to detail that they had for most 97 and all of 98. It was kind of in the same spirit where there were a lot of figures that came out looking drastically different from the way they originally did.
But in a good way.
But yeah, in a good way. Yeah, there was a lot of, they were very military type colors. Even figures that had gotten that had come out in brighter colors earlier were in military colors, and you could tell that they had learned some stuff from doing the Toys R Us line, and they put it into the reintroduction of Real American Hero. But yeah, Brian's right. All of 98, it's like one giant hidden gem made up of tiny hidden gem pieces. There's not a stinker in the bunch, and I'm glad we finally got to talk about this, and I'm glad we recorded it this time. That helped too. But yeah, it's full of good stuff.
And yeah, and I'm currently working on customs of those. I did a Arctic Firefly. It's up on the Facebook Go Figure Customs Facebook page. And like I said, I'm working on the Night Creeper, and at some point in time I'm going to do the version 4 Snow Serpent. I'm going to try and do a female version of that Snow Serpent, just because like I said, I love the mold. I just didn't like the version 2 color scheme. The version 3 is really hard to get a hold of, as JD mentioned. I just followed an auction just to see what it would go for, and it ended up going for I bid on it with my max at 45, and it ended at 65. But that's less than what people have it up for to buy it now. So
oh yeah, I can imagine. But
it's one of the few versions of the Snow Serpent that I don't have. I'm missing a couple of the Joe versus Cobra ones, but those aren't.
Well, I sent Brian a text. Well, he texted. He said, "Yeah, I want to make the Snow Trooper or the Snow Serpent for the 3-pack, but I'm gonna do the female version." And I text back, "Oh, that means you have to do sculpting for the fur." And he's like, "Yeah, but
yeah, because I'm thinking about using. I've got a Joy Toy buck that I really like for the. I think I may use for the figure, but yeah, that fur torso, man. I don't.
And you can't really do that version of the Snow Serpent without the fur torso and the fur at the top of the boots and the gloves, because it's kind of trademark to it.
Might skip the fur on the boots, but the rest of it, yeah.
Right, but yeah, you at least have to have the.
Yeah, because her boots aren't bloused on this, so on this.
Oh, okay.
And I actually like, because they look very, very reminiscent of like ski snow pants. So I'm like, that would really actually work pretty well.
Work.
So I like the buck. I'm probably that's probably what I'm gonna go with. I don't like sculpting because I'm not very good at it. So I'm not looking forward to doing that one, and I don't know how I'm gonna do the head just yet. I thought about using the Night Creeper head, 25th Night Creeper head to start with, but I'm not sold on that. I think it'll look weird because it will be in a pack with a Night Creeper, so I think that will be too distracting of an element. So I don't know how I'm going to do that just yet, but that's the plan. I did the card art for the 3-pack, the front of it, and
influenced by the 1998 packaging.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so put that up on Facebook.
Yeah, we're all right. I'm glad that this actually recorded. Hey, we'll actually get it posted this time.
Yeah. And I think I launched Zoom from the website, and after I logged in, so I think that's why it's working now.
Maybe that was the key. Yeah, I could screen share this time, which last time we did this, we couldn't screen share. So it was going to be a lot of editing for Brian.
I think this was a much better. Well, it was kind of disjointed. I think this is a better episode than what we had recorded previously or didn't record, because we were able to screen share and show you these figures.
Yes.
Normally when we talk about stuff, we don't really have to. I mean, when we talk about when we did the real American Hero year by year, I mean, I don't have to tell you what a Night Viper looks like. I don't have to tell you what Storm Shadow version 2 looks like. Everybody knows these figures. This particular line, man, not a lot of people know about these figures because they flew under the radar being Toys R Us exclusives. But I think it's something a lot of people should know about, because there's going to be a lot of figures that people are like, ooh, that is a work of art and I need one of those.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I say thanks everybody for listening.
Absolutely. as always, please do that fun social media stuff. Like, share, subscribe, comment below. Tell us what you liked about from the 1997, 1998 lines, what you didn't like, what you would have liked to have seen from those prototype figures that JD was showing you. We talked about Iron Man, so the Toy Biz, the retro line. Let us know what your thoughts are on the old Toy Biz from the cartoon, or some of the stuff that Hasbro says that they're going to be putting out in the next couple of months, or next year, I guess, technically. And as always, thanks for watching.